Good morning. Right, something a little bit different today. We're going to start just with some very, very basic skills, and then what I'm going to do is afterwards I will then link the skills sessions into all the various art activities so that whenever you've got a new art activity that you want to do, you're going to have some skills lessons that you can go back and refer to make sure that when it comes to the activity, you're ahead of the game, you know what it is that you need to be doing. So the first one, we're going to be looking at line and tone. For line, basically two things you can do. You can draw straight lines and you can draw curved lines. That's it. Hopefully they're dark enough for you to see. And when it comes to tone, you can draw or shade dark, and then you can go all the way through to light. And that's it. That's all it is with drawing. So how hard do you draw the line? Where do you put the line? Is it straight? Is it curved? And how do we shade it? So let's look at the basic shape. So lesson 1, this is what we're doing today, basic shapes. If I've got a square like that, it's a flat, it's a 2D object, but I want it to be 3D. So I'm going to have it coming off on the side like so. Now, can you see that is coming off at a slightly different angle there? So it's not parallel with the side pieces, and I'm just going to shade one side like that. Okay, so it looks like there's light coming in from this side. This side's a little bit darker, that side's a bit lighter. Here I can only see 2 faces. I can draw my cubes with 3 faces. Several ways of doing this. I'm not looking at vanishing points at the moment. I'm just keeping it incredibly simple. So this is a cube with 3 faces. If I want to look at the cube from the underside, here we go. So if I'm looking at this rubber and I want to see that side of it, I can see this face and I can see that face. So that would be like that. And can you see that as it gets further away, it gets smaller? And that's the key to this, really. As I say, vanishing points is a different lesson, so don't worry too much about the angles. It's just that basic understanding. If I'm looking at it from above, it would be that way. If I'm looking at the 3 faces, so this line and this line are parallel, this line and this line are parallel. Okay, I would see that. So that's your first shape. Then we're going to move on. I mean, actually, before I move on, don't think it's just got to remain cube. It could also become cuboid. So I could actually stretch it out much, much further if I wanted. Remember what I said, that line and that line are parallel. That line and that line are parallel. I've made that longer just so you can see it. Okay, so do this in all different shapes, all different sizes. You want bigger ones, you want smaller ones, you want long ones, and then you want stubbier ones. Once you've got that, pretty much you can draw most man-made objects. In nature, you need random shapes. For man-made objects, we're going to be looking at lots of right angles and sharp angles, so that's what we need to be looking at. Right, next one, we'll go on to the sphere. So we start with a circle. Just draw it freehand. Don't worry about making a perfect circle, as long as it's circular enough. I don't know if you noticed, but when I'm drawing my circle, I'm using the actual motions of my wrist and of my elbow, because that creates natural curves. If I'm keeping my arm static and drawing like that, it's far harder to do, because it's a fixed position. That is more natural than that. Right, so anyway, there's my circle. I'm going to decide where my light's coming in from. So what I will do is this side of the circle will be darker. And can you see that when I'm doing my shading, I'm following the curve. I'm not doing it in straight lines. I'm using the curve, and it will come round a little bit, all the way around like so. So that's where the light's hitting. So my torch would be there. Can you see how I'm doing that? So the torch is coming in slightly from the front and from there. And then the shadow would be just behind it and to the back like that. Good idea is to do a few of those and keep turning your torch light around. So this time I'm going to have it directly above. You see I'm still using that curve. And the shadow be right underneath it. Same shape, but the lighting is different. So play around with the lighting, do a few of those. Next one, do the cylinder. Now your cylinder may be open or it may be closed. So if it's a closed cylinder, think of something like a tin of beans, and darker on one side, lighter at the other. So that's a closed cylinder, a solid object. If it's hollow, I'll do this one next to it. And again, different sizes. I'll make this one much shorter. Lighter through to darker. If my light's coming in here, which hopefully you can see, there's the shadow. If I look inside the object, the wall of it is actually stopping the light getting onto this side, whereas the light is getting onto the far side. So the lighting on the inside of your cylinder is the opposite way around. So it's dark through to light on the outside and light through to dark on the inside, or vice versa, whichever way you want to look at it. So if you want to do cups or anything like that, that's how we do that one. Same thing sideways on. Some of the children did ask me, how do I do a cylinder when it's sideways? And it's just exactly the same shapes. So make sure that when you do this oval, that it just goes to the edge of the cylinder. Sometimes children make it go a little bit too wide, and then you've kind of put a lip or a brim on the edge of it, which if that's what you're designing, that's fine if you're doing pottery or something. Otherwise, you've gone wrong. That's got to be the same width as that. And the other common mistake is when people put a nice curve at the top and then forget about it and put a flat line at the bottom. If you're doing a 3D shape and it's rounded, it's got to stay rounded. You've got to keep those curves in there. Right, back to this one. Same as before, if the light's coming in from the top, it will be lighter, and then I tend to start from dark through to light. I find that easier. And then you just get lighter as you go up. If you don't find it particularly comfortable doing it that way, turn your paper around. I actually prefer shading sideways on rather than vertically. So if I was drawing these for myself, I'd probably turn the paper around a little bit. And again, the light's coming in from above, so the bottom of this is going to be a little bit lighter than the top. Okay, and there's your cylinders. Next one, let's have a look at cones. So it's a triangle with a curved edge. Now this one is when I'm looking at the cone and the base is flat against the floor, so I can't see inside it. When I think of the cone, I'm going to draw some lines in here that you don't need to draw, but it just helps you to see what I'm doing. Don't shade it vertically. When you do your shading, think of it as being made up of lots and lots of little wedges. Darker through to lighter. So don't just do it vertically, because this is the point where it's all getting smaller, so the light has got to come from this side and then come around. There we go. Now that's looking at it when if I'm looking, this is a cylinder, but it's the same idea. If I'm looking at it this way, you can't see on the inside, but if I turn it this way, I can see the inside. So for my cone, same thing. But this time, I'm going to go like that. So it's now tipped from being slightly that way to slightly that way, so I can see inside it. And as before, dark through to light. And then you do the opposite with the inside. So it's going to be lighter on this side and darker on this side. And just because I've done it that way round doesn't mean I can't do it that way round. And once you've done that, we can start putting all these various shapes together. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. Have a practice with these. It's just a nice little doodling exercise. And once you've done one, you think, right, I'm going to turn that into a cup. I'm going to turn that one into an ice cream. I'm going to turn that into a football. I'm going to, or cricket ball. I'm going to turn this into a train. Once you've drawn your basic shapes, that is it. It's then just converting whatever you want those to be into any object that you choose. Right, I'm going to leave it there. That's your first lesson. Basic shapes.